ladies and gentlemen, like all other projects, big or small, national or international, public or private, monitoring, as we all know, is absolutely necessary. Although it can be a burdensome management tool, but it is really indispensable to optimize and, if necessary, also to correct actions. We heard a lot about this, that actually projects are discontinued. So just to say briefly, everything that I know, or so much of what I know about impact assessment, has really come from a gentleman by the name of Andreas Schleicher. You probably know he's the head of the PISA project at the OECD. And the genius of Andreas Schleicher is that he didn't look at the input of education, what went into education systems, but on the output and on the performance. So I think this is really, really important also in the area of innovation, because for a long, long time, we only looked at the input measures, such as patents, R&D spending, and not enough on the output and on the actual performance. Now, the EIT was created to address some of these challenges and to really bring about innovation. So I think that this is really an important discussion to be had. I also want to congratulate the EIT for putting this on the agenda, because I would argue that many players in the innovation field oftentimes shy away from this discussion about how do you measure impact. So already I can say, well done. Now, I couldn't think of a better person to walk us through this than Jose Manuel Leceta, who is, of course, the director of the EIT. Now, Jose Manuel, you certainly really need no introduction really in this crowd. I think everyone knows who you are, but let me briefly mention a little bit about you. You started your professional career in the space industry before joining Spain's innovation agency in 1992 as a member of the delegation to the European Space Agency, and your leadership has really played a pivotal role in the development and the expansion of the EIT's activities. As I said, I could think of no better person to kick off this discussion than you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, with this sort of introduction, of course, you are setting the standard very high. I will try to keep you motivated, because the interesting part is indeed what you just spotted out. What is this all about in terms of the output results, right? So this is what we are actually doing, and it is, if I may start with a bit of a provocation, a kind of an obsession in the EIT. So I'm not responsible for that, because a lot of board members are here, and they are really encouraging that we should be different in the way we approach innovation, and it's not certainly about inputs, it's about outputs, and in the end, actual impact. I think that the state of play now is about behavioral additionality, if you use precise words, because I think the KICs are changing also the way many approaches have been, have been taken formally. So I think, again, it's in our genes, and this is, again, what we are doing together with the KICs. I would start with some basic statements about how does actually this agenda unfold at the EIT. And you have here, in fact, the elements of the system that we have put in place together with our Commission colleagues and the KICs CEOs, whereby we have these 4 levels at the EIT, where the KICs are given, as it has been stressed before, a lot of autonomy to establish their own dynamics connected to the KPIs, which are KIC specific. And this is precisely the first set of indicators. Now, the second level concerns, of course, those issues on which the EIT can establish some comparability. And these are few indicators, which constitute what we call a scoreboard, the core KPIs. And these have been now endorsed by the board as a first generation of indicators. The time would come to revisit this if that is needed. But we can present you this as a fact, and I would provide you not only the statements about these indicators, but how do the actual figures look like if we aggregate the first results and the first outputs coming from the KICs. Now, the third level looks at the EIT as an institute, because indeed we should be more than the sum of the KICs. And if the EIT is to make a difference also in the way, again, innovation has been approached, there should be, and the board has still to consolidate that, number of indicators that looks at the added value of the institute. So I would present also a little bit about this. Now, last but not least, of course, the EIT is going to be occupying its position in the framework of the new Horizon 2020. So, of course, there should be also responsiveness to that political level so that the EIT serves a purpose. But I guess if you are all here, you are convinced that there is a unique value proposition for the EIT in that particular context. Now, how does this actually translate into the map of indicators? You have them seen here presented. If, the green bubbles concern the second level, so the core KPIs on which we take some comparability between the current KICs. And then the purple and the blue ones concern the EIT as an institute, the third level. You see this is, it may look a bit complex, but in fact it reflects a serious effort to have this professionally done with some external advice. But to keep things simple, again, it's just to create added value for Europe, and there are 3 blocks of indicators. Again, the enabling innovation and value creation, which concerns the core KPIs for the scoreboard of the EIT, and these are very much the outputs coming from the KICs, which can be comparable. We don't talk here at this level, of course, about their KIC-specific KPIs, which are thematically oriented. Now, the KPIs for the EIT concern these other bubbles you see here, and these can be streamlined in 2 blocks. Again, operational excellence, because the EIT should be different also in the way we conduct operations, and most importantly also, EIT should represent another voice to more traditional offerings at the European Union level. Therefore, positioning the EIT in the landscape is an objective in itself, which should also be measured. Again, these 2 blocks in pink and blue are still work in progress. What I would present you now is how does this look like for the KPIs that have been set and agreed by the board. These are basically 6, and it just looks at the outputs. You have 2 indicators per dimension of the knowledge triangle, if you so wish. On the education side, you have, on the one hand, the attractiveness of education programs, the number of graduates. Concerning entrepreneurship, you have another 2, the business ideas incubated and the number of startups created. There's a small difference here, and I guess I'm sure that the KICs would develop on this. And then concerning the innovation to existing business, we have again 2 indicators, the knowledge transfer, adoption, and the new and improved product, services, or processes launched. So how does this look like into aggregated figures if we would take the former years of the KICs, but also this current year? And so what you see here is provisional, because we have taken the figures out of the business plans they have been presented. These are the figures if you aggregate them together for the 3 KICs. The first figure you see, which is the largest one, concerns the number of applicants. If you would go to the ratio of number of applications per seats offered, it's something like 13. Okay, again, aggregating the figures for the 3 KICs. The number of graduates, still we are in the early days, the EIT is investing in the KICs. Few graduates have came out of their education programs. So you have to be careful here not to make any judgment. We are still on the investment phase. Now the startups are roughly a bit more than 100, and then the business ideas incubated more than 400 already. So I think these are reasonable figures if you would again consider that we are still in the early days. It would be wrong if we would ask now the question, what is the value for money? Because still we are investing a significant part of our resources in the building up of the KICs and all what they can promise. So it's like in a company, you can only get a reasonable estimate of return over investment when there is the sufficient time to come to that judgment. But I think the figures are reassuring, and we should take this as an encouragement, of course, to simply build upon this for the better. I would conclude with this because, as I said, it's not about only outputs, which we are measuring, is about actual long-term impact in societal and economic terms. So for this purpose, the board has set up a working group, which is still working, looking into the financing, which has been presented here, then the monitoring of these results, the outputs, and the way we measure them through the KPIs, but then most importantly, the long-term impact. So the message here is this is still work in progress. One member of the board, Maria Makarov, who is together with us, is precisely in that working group. So I hope that we would present something about this in the future, in future conference, where I hope you would be also joining us. So I'm open for questions or for the next steps you find appropriate.
Thank you so much. What you presented, 318 graduates, 404 the number of business incubators, 108 startups. I mean, that's extremely impressive for such a short period of time. But one thing that I'm wondering is, how do you monitor that over time? Because if, for instance, one of your graduates in 3 years starts a company, how do you get credit for that? Because they went through your entrepreneurial training. How does that work? Do you have systems in place that will do that over time?
Yes, I think we have, again, worked very closely together with the KICs, because these figures should be credible. And connected to this startups, business creation, there has to be a legal or a contractual relationship for this number to be counted. So I think we have been very precise, not to spell out what I presented here, but the definition, and this definition has been endorsed by the 3 KIC CEOs. Of course, again, we should not just present figures, but these figures should mean something which is comparable and credible altogether.
Very good. Just one brief follow-up question, José Manuel. You mentioned that the EIT is an alternative voice in the European landscape, and I confirm that. But what kind of voice do you want to be? As someone spoke before about disruptive innovation, and I do find the EIT is a little bit more disruptive. Can you elaborate on that?
Well,
how do you see your role sort of
I will give you my personal conviction, and I took with a bit of liberty here, but I have to say that it's growing up, I think, in the perception of many, that if you want to talk about innovation, and if Europe is to narrow down the innovation gap, it's more than patents, it's more than publications, it's people. And people are the vehicle for knowledge creation and knowledge exploitation. So I think it's very much, well, again, my conviction, but I think this is growing. Maybe EIT can bring about the voice of democratizing innovation, bringing back innovation power to people. So.
Excellent. I mean, I could not have said this any better, José Manuel, so thank you so much. As an external bystander, I can confirm that the EIT, I think, plays a very important role sort of in the larger European innovation debate. Now, I will turn my attention to Mary Witte, the CEO of the Climate KIC. Finally, a lady on the panel. Now, Mary, you have a long-standing experience in academia, and you have extensive expertise in doctoral and postdoctoral researcher training. I think one of the things that actually didn't come through enough today is the important role that you play in education and really sort of educating the next generation of innovators, entrepreneurs. So very much look forward to what you have to say, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to reiterate a little bit, Climate KIC has 162 partners that go across Europe. We have 5 co-location centres, but we also have our 6 regions, so that I think we reach the parts of Europe that maybe some others don't. What I want to present to you now is just how we make sure that all those partners who are working on the various activities integrated between innovation and entrepreneurship and education, how we make sure that what they're doing fits within our overarching strategy and obviously within our annual business plan. And as José Manuel has said, this has to be output driven. So we're looking for excellence, we're looking for high productivity, and we're looking for output related to our strategy. And I think that's a message of not just what we've done, but for new KICs as well. The output, the measure of your output, what you want to look for is to make sure that you are supporting your strategy, that you are actually implementing and that you're delivering it, and that you are year on year progressing in the right direction. So we started with defining our mission and our objectives, and our overall mission was to create opportunities for innovators to address climate change and shape the world's next economy. The next step was to define our strategic objectives, and we had 3 key areas for that: to foster climate innovation and entrepreneurship, to build knowledge and innovation community on climate change, and to address climate change. We then looked at more specific objectives, and I won't go through all of those with you, but having done that, we then designed the output measures that we could use to look at our progress and how we were achieving on those objectives. So we designed our scoreboard then to match the objectives. We incorporated the 6 EIT pan-KIC objectives, and they're on the slides highlighted. Actually, there are only 5 there, and one that's missing is one of the education ones, where we do measure it, but we have a slightly different one for measuring the quality of our students. So we have these, we collect them annually, and we use them to monitor, and more as time goes on, and I'll tell you a little bit about what's in progress, we will use them to see how we are working towards these strategic and these specific objectives. I told you, or I didn't actually, but my colleagues told you, that we have focused our activities onto platforms because climate change is such an enormous area. We have to be focused. Within these platforms, we've integrated our education and our entrepreneurship and our innovation. And we've obviously then had to disaggregate that to look either at the objectives or at the pillars or to look at the output. And what I want to show you now is some of the output from these challenge platforms, but aggregated in terms of what we call our 3 pillars: the innovation, the education, and the entrepreneurship. So this is just last year. It's not aggregated, as Jose Manuel showed you. So with the highlights, as I said, we've got the 8 challenge platforms where we integrate our activities. We've had 7 new innovation and 8 new Pathfinder projects launched. We have 9 demonstrations, 9 services and products launched, 14 knowledge transfers, startups, policies, and publications. I won't go through all of them on every slide. But to give you a flavour of what is going on using those KPIs that I showed and how we develop them. For the entrepreneurship, we've had 172 sector and geography crossing pioneers. This is a new mobility programme that we've developed for Europe. 74 new business ideas incubated, 20 SME vouchers, 4 climate market accelerator pilots that Ian told you about earlier, and we have matchmaking events. We've set up a Climate Kick incubator network linking across all our 11 hubs in Europe, and we have venture competitions and innovation slams. And finally, on the education side, we now have 31 EIT labelled master's programmes, and we've had 241 master's and PhD students that have gone through this very special entrepreneurship programme. And then not so much the next 2 in terms of KPIs, but it raises another point that I want to end on. We have excellent student feedback, and we have an alumni association set up by the students and the pioneers themselves, and they have applied and have now been accepted as an affiliate partner of the KIC so that we can continue to work together and to help each other. And the last one on the slide we're very proud of, we have 12 student business ideas that are in our incubation system in our greenhouse. So these are students who've stepped aside from their work. So key points to finish with, because we were asked to flag up some key issues. Strategy development first, and then your scorecard and the KPIs to measure progress and to ensure delivery. So the standard SMART sort of acronyms of simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Driving perverse behaviour was something that came up on the instructions, and it is always a danger. especially when competition is really strong. Perhaps it will be in the future between the 3 KICs. This could be a problem. But if you design your KPIs properly, then that should be fine. And really what's crucial is that within your KIC, you set your targets with your KPIs, and then you aim to reach them. For climate KIC, and this has come up before, sometimes measuring impact is not easy. And we have commercial drivers, but we have social drivers and social challenges. And actually measuring overall societal impact, for example, or climate change impact is much more complex than having simple KPIs. So we use KPIs as proxies, but it is a lot of ongoing work to look at how we measure genuine impact. We're working on it. In fact, we've started a new type of PhD studentship within Climate KIC, where they're actually researching how the KIC operates and how it works. And looking at impact will be one of the topics for this research project. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. I thought that was really interesting and very clear. Now, Jose Manuel mentioned that it's too early to talk about return on investment or so. And I note that in your slides, it was mostly about so many students graduated, you know, and went through the entrepreneurship training. But do you already have a feeling for if 240 master's and PhD students went through that training, how many actually then started companies? Do you have that kind of information? Because I think that would be an important output measure, sort of.
Yes, we certainly do. And I mean, Richard Temple in the audience may correct me on the numbers, but certainly from the first year, maybe he won't, but from the first year, from the 2010 cohort, we certainly had 3 startups that came from 50 students on the journey, which is a pretty high.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, as someone.
And what the greenhouse does for our students is that they can be masters or PhD students. They have a lot of elements if they're on an EIT labelled masters, elements all the way through the programme. But if they've been on the journey, they develop business ideas there, they come together in groups, they have a business competition, they have business coaching. They can actually apply then for a stipend to set aside for up to 6 months for the ideation phase, and they can go into what we call greenhouse in one of our incubators. And that's where a lot of these ideas come. So 3 startups from the 2010, and from 2011, 2012, we've got, as I say, those 12 groups working on the ideation at the moment.
Very good. And these startups are, of course, already part of a bigger community, which also helps them thrive. And just to say, entrepreneurship training is never for nothing. I mean, it was Alexander Vodka-Wein who spoke about intrapreneurship. You know, I mean, entrepreneurship takes many forms, not just starting a new company.
It's interesting. Some of them have started their own company. Others have gone out, not done that, but they've joined another SME and helped it get going. And yet others have gone into big companies, but are working in strategic roles.
Very good. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now our next speaker is Professor Willem Jonke, the CEO of the ICT Labs. Now, Willem, you have a very broad background in the field of ICT, mostly in industry, but also academia. You serve as a part-time professor in computer science at Twente University and have in the past held leading roles in international companies such as Philips and KPN. And with all this experience, particularly this industry angle, I think you have much to share here. And we look forward to what you have to say, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Actually, target and focus is the motto we have this year in EIT ICT Labs. And you have seen our annual report. It's available, it's outside there, and it has as a motto that we had last year, it's invest for impact. And the question we have now is, how do you measure impact? And of course, it starts with that you know what you want to achieve. Because if you have no clue where you're going, how do you know that you have the right impact or what you want to measure? And to summarize what we want to achieve and what our mission is in EIT ICT Labs, I use only two words: educate and innovate. And by combining the two, it means also that the education has to address innovation elements, and that innovation cannot go without teaching people about how to adopt innovations. Now let's look, what is education about? It's actually about two things. It's very much about knowledge, but it's also very much about skills. And what's unique about what we are trying to do in EIT is really to make sure that people do not only come from a higher education institute with a good package of knowledge, but also with a good skill set to make them really excel in an entrepreneurial environment. So if that is what you want to be a preferred talent supplier. And who determines whether you are a preferred supplier? Your customers. It's not yourself, right? Some American universities measure the quality of their education by the salaries of their graduates. And they proudly announce that if you follow their education, on average you will earn 50% more than people who went to other universities. Okay. In Europe, especially when I see the discussion in my country going on, this is probably not the best measure. The other thing, of course, how much are your students wanted by employers? Is it really an advantage that you went through this education? Another thing you could look at is, what is the impact on society? Many universities are very proud that they brought big thinkers to the world, poets that maybe had no economic impact at all, but a huge impact on society. So there are different ways to measure. There's also a difference between what in the end you want to achieve in terms of impact and the leading indicators that you can measure today. And for example, talent inflow is a leading indicator. If you are able to attract high talent to your education, there must be something. Maybe you are just paying too high scholarships, might be a reason. But hopefully the reason is that the rumor has spread that it's really very good education that you get here. It's also to do with business interest. Are companies interested to co-invest also in the education part of the KIC? And of course, it's the higher education interest. And I think there is what you see is that gradually what we want to achieve with the KICs is that, first of all, we probably mostly attract our students because of the high-profile higher education institutes we have in the KIC, but gradually we hope to attract them with the EIT brand and the EIT label. And that's also a moving target. When you look to innovation, it's about inventions and markets, and bringing inventions to the market. So if you want to be a preferred innovation supplier, you have to generate very good deal flow. I often say when I talk to people in the KIC, if you really want to generate good deal flow, you want, just by chance, run into a coffee shop, not in Amsterdam, but in Silicon Valley, and then hear two venture capitalists say to each other, well, nowadays I take most of my deal flow from EIT ICT Labs, because on average it generates twice the revenues when I source from other places. That makes you an impactful, preferred supplier of innovations. Of course, you are a preferred supplier if you generate growth. and you have economic impact. And again, these are finally the output measures where it's really all about. But also in this case, of course, you would like to have some leading indicator. And what are leading indicators is, if people have a very good idea, a very good invention, do they come to the KIC and ask the KIC to bring it to the market? Or do they go to somebody else to bring it to the market? And if they come to us, it says something about our reputation. It's also about the business interest. Are large companies interested to work with us because they think that our ecosystem will bring them better access to better technologies than they can find through other means? And it's also to do with talent interest. Are talented people interested to work with us in our innovation projects? Because talent wants to work with other talent. And it's about teams and highly motivated and highly skilled teams that make the difference. 2 words to finalize. KPIs are about quality, not about quantity. Far too often, KPI systems end up to be number games. 1 second remark on that one. Who knows Jack Welch? For those who don't, he was the man leading GE year after year to great successes. Who knows the title of his book? Nobody. Sorry? No. The title of his book is Straight from the Gut. KPIs are great, but they are tools. Always keep using your intuition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think you walked us through a very, very interesting set of indicators, measurements, KPIs. Can you just explain in 1 minute, maybe 1 minute, how your KIC performs on all these measures?
Apparently you listened to a different story.
What can I
But I think I have to refer to two things. First of all, I looked at the targets compared to the ones that we set out, and I saw 2 problems. So there was one. So most of them were relatively okay in what we set out, but there were 2 problems. One was we performed 3 times as much as we expected, which I think is not good. Because it's about not really being able to predict your own organization and knowing where the things are. And the other one was education, where we attract, in the end, only half, or let's say we placed only half of the students that we intended to place. And that was a quality issue. We could have placed more, but then we had to sacrifice on quality of the students. So we deliberately choose to take less. And what we did is we took a number of measures to improve the acquisition and the marketing around our education programs. And Stan knows the exact numbers.
That's why Stan's the man. He's on every battle.
And they're also in the report, by the way.
Very good. And all 3 of you actually mentioned this KIC scoreboard. Just explain to me, are they done individually for each, or you have a combined scoreboard? They're done individually, so you, okay, just for my clarity. Go ahead, Mary.
They're done individually, but they interact with obviously the 6
okay. Very good. And then Jose Manuel is the big boss here. Okay, so this is what you were referring to in your slide, where you had the 3 different colors. So.
Well, I have to correct you because I'm yes, the director, you know,
Yeah,
and
please.
the EIT is more than the headquarters
Yeah.
and more than the sum of the KICs. The board has also been very wise into establishing a living relationship with the KICs, so that the funding is made available on a yearly basis, and that is influenced by the deliverables. So they come, the CEOs come to the headquarters at the end of the year, they present their achievements, they present their ambitions, and then the board, in its wisdom, together with, of course, experts' assessment, our own assessment, takes a view on how to best allocate the investment. So it's a very creative portfolio investment approach into at the KIC level.
Can I just ask, when that moment comes and you come at the end of the year and you interact with the board, do you ever not meet your targets?
Yes.
Okay, so it does happen. Okay. You don't need to specify it.
No. We miss some, but we overachieve in others.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, our last speaker for today is Diego Pavia, the CEO of the Energy KIC. Diego, as we already heard, you actually run a company, so lots of pressure on you. I saw you were a very active participant today. You didn't say much, but I heard you listen to everything. And now I actually look forward to listening to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Anne. So 5 slides on how in KIC Energy we have created and we use a performance management scoreboard. So first thing is that you have to get this straight in the new KICs to come. So the whole thing has to be aligned and smoothly running from the top. So what is the strategy challenge you are addressing, to the impact that you, the 3 legs of the knowledge triangle, you want to pursue in your new KIC to come. Then for those impact you pursue, you set up your strategy, and then objectives, the business processes, and you use at the end the PMS, the KPIs, to tune whether what you are doing, what you planned, is fulfilled or not. So the most important to have these things right and to use the KPIs as a management tool is that they feed back into the flow, so you continually adjust to get the impact you pursue right. So as a management tool for us in KIC Energy is key. And even the people that I've seen today pitching our business case, Arne, Bart, we are all measured on a yearly basis, and our variable remuneration is linked 100% to the KPIs and targets that our supervisory board set us every December. So it's extremely important because it aligns the whole flow, it aligns the partners' motivations to be around the table in KIC Energy. In our case, just to make a bit of zoom, each one of those key steps, the societal challenge we want to address, we're addressing is, I don't know whether you need it or not, out of €1 that things that you are wearing, services that you are buying, products you are eating, 27% of euro of this euro is energy cost. This is a societal challenge we are addressing in KIC Energy. That's the green thing. And the red thing is how we try to impact to address this challenge. And everything we do needs to have an impact in 3 things: to decrease the cost of energy, to increase operability, and to decrease the greenhouse gas effects. Everything we do, the education programs, the startups we create, the innovation projects we launch. It's very important to have this as a common goal of the shareholders and of the partners around the table. And then you just deploy the rest of the thing. And the last step is the performance management system where the KPIs are. In the KPIs, you have always 3 types of KPIs. The ones measuring the process, the ones measuring the output, and the ones measuring the impact. And in our scoreboard, and it's 100% KIC Energy 1, different from the one from climate and from ICT, you will find all the key questions that were raised before. The societal challenge, you see there growth and competitiveness. The impact pursuit, you see there the decrease of cost of energy, and the other two. You see there the objectives. We want to launch 1,000 game changers in our run rate, and our run rate as a company will be reached in 2016. 30 startups in sustainable energy. MIT, already 70 years in business, is launching 30 startups a year, and the rest of it. You'll find there everything that helps us to tune that what we're doing is rightly on the spot on what we decided as a strategy. Very important tool. And I picked 3 examples on process. So today, the portfolio of innovation projects that we have today has identified 95 products and services that will impact the competitiveness of our industrial partners. That's a process KPI. Still, you have to measure it because there's a lead indicator, as William was saying, of the output and impact. An example of output, number of startups created back last year, today is 12. In our case, a startup is where we have 10% of equity, and the startup has already the first customer. And this 10% of equity goes into our balance sheet, in our goodwill, for our sustainability. Again, absolutely aligned with the strategy of self-sustainability of KIC Energy. Everything has to be aligned to be effective. And impact 1. So 28 graduates out of the EIT label masters. The 28 were recruited 3 months after they finished, and they're making 15% more than their peers in terms of salary. Again, it's a KPI where you have to build upon to keep on progressing in the efficiency of your business. So 3 messages to the audience. The KPIs are the proof of the pudding that you are walking the talk. Very nice strategy, very nice objectives, but please show me that you are delivering what you were promising. Otherwise, it's no progress. The second message is the KICs were very strange animals. The topology is very distributed. The delivery resources are not ours. So you need to find something that aligns everybody towards a common objective. They belong to completely different institutions, research, university, industry. So you have to have a tool to make them align towards objective. We are not normal companies. So that's why for us at KIC Energy, the KPIs are extremely good to align the effectiveness of the resources. And the third and last message is, when you build the new KICs, this flow of steps from impact to the PMS, get it right, because it will be a promotion element, your USP, to get the best and the excellence buying into your business model. Because when an industry knocks on the door and says, hey, please tell me about why are you different? Outputs achieved are extremely good selling arguments to catch the attention of the best ones. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diego. One of the things that I forgot to mention when I introduced you is that previously you were the CEO of a major company, Atos Origin. You managed 9,000 employees, 450 million euros turnover. Explain to me really briefly, what's the difference sort of in KPIs in a company like that and what you do now?
Well, at Atos Origin, we had to deliver results to the stock exchange every 3 months. So the stock exchange didn't just look at 3 KPIs. That is the free cash flow generated. So it's very commonly accepted because it's the way you compare different efficiencies and performances of quoted companies. KIC Energy is medium long term. We are building from a white piece of paper a new concept about being more efficient in innovation, in creating impact through innovation. So the KPIs are completely different. We are just creating a new way of doing innovation. So the way you measure, that's why I talked about process KPIs, output KPIs, and impact KPIs.
Very interesting.
The model, has to be checked.
And is it because of you that you are set up as a company?
No, when I came, I was headhunted back in September 2010. As the chairman said this morning, the partners, shareholders, had used a consulting firm to help them to set up the company. And in the setup of the company, they were requesting the CEO, and well.
Very good.
There you go.
We have time for one round of interventions. I wanted to talk to people. There's a lady. Maybe if we don't have a rest. This lady, please. And then I come to you.
My name is Esther Schwarzenberger. I'm here for the EU Bureau of the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research. We've just learned that the KICs scoreboards are set up individually, and I'd like to know who's involved in setting this KIC-specific objectives, because to be mean, wouldn't you just have to set them low enough to be able to exceed them?
Thank you, very provocative. The gentleman over there. No, yeah.
Hi, my name is Owen O'Neill. I'm from DG Connect in the European Commission. And well, Willem in his presentation did highlight the importance of quality, not quantity. In the other presentations, there was lots of examples which were quantity driven. And in the room here today, we have lots of people who are looking forward to the next wave of 6 KICs that will be funded, all things going through the Parliament and the Council as expected. There will be 6 KICs that will be launched. Do you think that by presenting with an emphasis on quantity in several of the presentations, you're giving the wrong message, contradictory to your quality, not quantity message of Willem?
Very good. Yeah, I didn't notice that as well, so thank you for pointing that out. There's a lady over there.
Thank you. My name is Susanne Stover. I'm coming from the Technische Universität Munich. You've shown us lots of figures. I'd be interested in if you set a baseline before you started, because you always need to compare the figures. Did you, I mean, you gave us a number of new companies that were created, but maybe they would have been created anyway. I'm sure they wouldn't, but I'd like some proof. Thank you.
Wow, these are tough questions. We'll go back, because otherwise there's already 3 pretty heavy questions, so I don't want to add to your pain. Jose Manuel, should we start with you very quickly? And I have to ask you all to be very brief.
I would tackle only the question which concerns the EIT, because you also pointed out some of the KPIs for KIC-specific topics and whether this could have happened without, which is, I think, more appropriate for the KICs to set the tone. I would give you, because you also asked, are we sending the wrong message with these figures? I think, you know, it's very clear with the Horizon 2020, EIT would enter a new stage in its development. And of course, the trust and hopefully the funding comes also with expectation. The strategic innovation agenda points to some figures. We haven't set up these targets ex ante, but of course it would be up to the board to decide whether in this new chapter EIT should not only measure when it's actually coming out, whether to put some expectations. On the other hand, of course, progress needs to be measured. So what we have said is not sufficient, but is a necessary step. We have to measure the figures. But of course, this is not to substitute the ultimate objective of creating jobs and growth. So whatever we present about outputs and figures, indeed should be assessed against the actual long-term impact. And you know very well the problem in Europe is not the lack of companies and the lack of new companies being created. Unfortunately, it's also linked to the fact that these companies do not grow. So that's why we expect to see a difference with these ecosystems, so that the companies get accelerated and we get closer to this standard of the Kaufman, whereby all net job created in the States come through companies that did not exist 5 years ago, which was very much what our chairman presented in the morning. This population of aging firms in Europe
having been created in the last century against many other US companies having been created in the last 15 years. So whatever we say is not about forgetting the ambition to go from outputs into the impact. And this is what I presented to you about this working group of the board which is looking at this.
Excellent. Thank you, Jose Manuel. Mary.
Okay. Right, the first question about setting objectives, and do we set them deliberately low so we can overachieve? No, is the answer. I mean, we are ambitious. If we weren't ambitious, we really wouldn't have gone into the business of setting up a KIC, because it's a lot of work and it's terrifically rewarding, but it's only rewarding if you have high ambitions. And the other thing I would say is, I think if we went to the hearing in December in front of the EIT governing board with very low ambitions, I don't think it would go down very well. So I think we're all very ambitious. Quality versus quantity. I did start off saying that excellence was paramount. So actually written into the definition of the KPIs is quality. So for example, one of our education ones, looking at the quality of the students, it looks at, in fact, our achievement in terms of numbers against the target improvement we set, but it also looks at the quality of the students on a scale from 0 to 10 at their entry into the programme. So quality is absolutely essential, and then the numbers come after that.
Excellent, thank you. Willem?
Yeah, I will address two questions. One for how do you set the targets? Well, it doesn't make sense to put them too low or too high, but of course it is an issue to fine-tune them, and that has to do with experience. I mean, in the early stage of the KIC, you're new, so you don't really have the experience on what are reasonable targets. And, well, that's a continuous improvement of the targets, but I mean, again, nobody has any use of making a game out of this. I mean, this doesn't make sense. The other thing about the baseline is, of course, an interesting thing. So the question is always, okay, you have done this, but would this not have happened when you were not there? Well, I would like to say the proof around. Rewind history and do it without us and see whether you have the same result. So the proof's on your side. That being said, as a joke, of course, it is true that it is very important to prove that the added value and the approach that we are taking in the EIT really makes a difference. So it's not just about the numbers, it's also to whom do you want to compare and where do you want to excel. And what I showed, for example, in education, for us it's about the integrated approach of mixing skill and knowledge. And that's something where you are unique, so you have to look at your unique selling points and to make sure that your impact also measures that these unique selling points really make a difference.
Very good.
Yep.
Diego. Very good.
So on setting the targets, as I said, KIC Energy has got a run rate objective in 2016. You are where you are, so you just make the linear interpolation of where you are and where you're going to get. And that is the initial plan of the company. So it's not about setting low, setting high, it's just setting the path to get this 2016 agreed by the supervisory board of KIC Energy target. And I tell you, in the supervisory board, there's guys like the ABB and Total, and they are not easy guys to negotiate objectives. So there is no low ball in objectives. Then quality, quantity. That's why I talk about impact and benchmark. Because the best way to prove the quality of an output is that your guys are earning 50% more than their peers, or that the KPI patterns is 1 pattern per 1 million euro investment, like in KIC, versus 1 pattern per 67 million investment in FP7. So the quality of the data, of course, you need to read behind, but that's the best, to benchmark yours with others. And then you get the qualitative side of it. And finally, on setting the objectives, the KICs who are competing in all our 3 business lines. In education, the students come to us because they find something different. The ventures come to us because they find something different in the incubators. The companies put their innovative needs because they see a value proposition is different from other things in us. So that's the best way to say that if they will not exist, you will not be there, because they are coming. We're competing out there.
Excellent, thank you. We spoke a lot about the difficulty of making sound management decisions. I have to make a decision now because I still saw a lot of hands and we're officially out of time. How many people still want to ask a question? Just one. Or two. Three. Okay. We'll do it very quickly. If you do not speak longer than 1 minute, but please take the time to introduce yourself.
Okay. Francisco Reyes from Savannah Innovation Consulting in Spain. I just wanted to ask what makes an educational program get or obtain the EIT level? What makes it different from other usual educational
I think that's a good question, because it's a valuable label, so yeah, how to get it is very important. Coming from the label.
Newcastle University. This question doesn't relate to this latest session only, but the whole of today. What's happened to the research node of the knowledge triangle? We've heard a lot about innovation, about education, but not much about research or negative.
So what happened to research? Anyone else? I know you want to, but you've already spoken twice, so anyone else? It's your lucky day. Okay, go ahead, give it to him.
Okay, Stuart Anderson at the University of Edinburgh. I wanted to ask Jose Manuel something, and it was whether the EIT are committed to using modern impact methodologies. So, particularly Technology Strategy Board in the UK use counterfactual methodologies quite a bit. EG Radio has some quite nice work on it, and given that we're living in the era of big data, it's a much more feasible methodology than it used to be. So I'd like to hear the comment from EIT on that.
Okay. Again, not the very easy questions, but and with the request for a very, very quick answer. And can I just say that if you don't sufficiently answer it, there's going to be a drinks reception later, and you can get together. Maybe just talk about it.
I think that I maybe should focus on this. As I explained to you, it's still very early. This working group has been set up by the board. We have a core set of output indicators, but we are now developing, we want to develop some impact indicators, for which of course we'll have to apply different methodologies, and also we'll let you know. And then of course I'm very open to listen from you. Of course it's not trivial, but we have to get it right. And then I have to say, I see some friends from other innovation agencies, this issue about additionality, which links back to the question, would this have happened without, is not resolved, from many different angles. I mean, nobody has the recipe. What we want to establish is, of course, a theoretical framework against which you can respond professionally to this, and then again take a definitive view into the long-term impact, again in societal and economic terms. But again, yes, we should apply methodology, we would engage some experts, by the way, so still early days, but I hope that we would be confirming that when we meet again in the future.
Excellent, thank you. Mary.
Okay, the EIT label, basically this is based on a core of first-class education, together with entrepreneurship education firmly embedded in it, and then also the programme includes mobility across Europe, so it involves the knowledge of all the different parts of Europe, as well as establishing an entrepreneurial network that will really furnish the graduates with sort of first-class stepping stone, if you like, to the rest of their life. The other question on research, role of research in the KIC, it's very much not academic research. That's much more what comes in as the complementary funding. It's really very far down the pipeline, close to market research, but it can be in a range of disciplines. It's not just scientific or engineering research, it's social science, financial. And then, although for us most of it is focused and mapped onto those platforms, as I said at the end of my presentation, some of it is actually designed to look at the workings of the KIC, because we're experiments as well, and we want to know which bits of us is a successful experiment and which bits are not.
Excellent, thank you. Willem.
Yeah, about the EIT label, the master school and the doctoral school have a specific structure which is different from the traditional structure. So in the master school, what we did, we took the existing education schemes of 2-year master. We did remove a quarter of that and replaced it with innovation and entrepreneurship education modules. We also have a mobility program where you start 1 year at one university, then go to a second one, and there are a few more of those differences. And a similar thing you see in the doctoral school. So you see that we have a very specific number of integrated add-ons. It's not just loose added, but integrated add-ons in the domain of mobility and innovation and entrepreneurship. And quickly about the research role in the KIC. So, as was said, we are about making sure that the research results really make it to the market. And where you often see what needs to be done to do that is to make the research more mature. And that is very often still pretty close to applied research, what you do there. What you also see is what is needed is to, in an early stage, experiment your research with end users in order to get feedback on features and so on. And then what you see is a kind of pre-deployment phase, I would say, where, for example, open source projects and standardization projects play an important role. This involves immediately researchers. Then, of course, the more, let's say, fundamental problem-oriented research is done in the carrier projects. But these are iterations. So you get feedback from your experiments, but you can also have an SME that is bringing a technology to the market, finds out that there are restrictions or limitations, and feed that back into our research community with new research questions that are being researched in the carrier projects. We also help our researchers to set up new carrier projects and to play in that leverage part. So there are many roles for the researchers to play. And it is true that this is a little bit of a dialogue that is needed, and maybe much of a dialogue that is needed with the researchers to make this clear where this role is exactly. But that holds for other players in the KIC as well.
Yeah. Basically, also to understand what is different from our education programs compared to the other offers existing in the market, what we do is we put the microphone to the customers, to the students. What do you apply to our education programs and not to the others? And they give us 6 answers. Besides the double degree, besides the mobility, they become on 3 additional. That is, the master thesis is on an industrial product. And so the way into the market after working for the industrial needs in the master thesis is extremely important. Number 1. Number 2, we are giving scholarships, and we do not ask the student to commit to anything after he finishes. As you know, in other places like in the States, okay, I grant you, but then I take you for the next 3 years as a PhD, whatever. So you commit on something afterwards. And the third thing is the quality of the institutions that are delivering the educational programs. That is unique. So build, the new KICs build on excellence. Then on research, 2 comments on research. The KICs are TRL, technology readiness level, above 5, down to 9. So it is where the research and research arms of universities will play a role. But I'm the numbers guy, and for the last 3 years, the KIC funding has been captured 70% by research and research arms of universities. So it is a place. But we all have to understand that we are on this part of the TRL value chain. And the industries inside, and as you know we have 95 industries, because their return comes from the market, does not come from the funding. It comes from putting or adapting their processes to be more competitive. So there's definitely a place for research and research arms of universities, understanding the role they play.
Excellent, thank you so much. As you know, the theme of today was what makes a KIC a KIC. I think this evening we're walking out of here with a very, very clear idea of what makes a KIC, not the least because of this excellent panel. I want to say these were by far the toughest questions. You answered them superbly. So let's give a round of applause to our impossible to summarize a debate so rich, so multifaceted, but let me just point out three things. Simplicity was described as sort of a guiding principles of the KICs, but we also learned that these are really very rich, very complex constructs that you're trying to bring together, collaborate, etc. So this is a huge management challenge, and I applaud you for tackling it because I really think it makes a big difference. Secondly, we talk about doing things faster, bringing to market, etc. But I also like that there is a clear recognition that this also takes time. So these KICs are not under as much pressure as most companies. You spoke about it, the 3-month cycle, the constant pressure from shareholders. I think this is really important in tackling societal challenges, that we can take our time and we don't impose this constant pressure. So the third thing is the KICs share many goals with many other vehicles at the European level, whether it's innovation, growth, or jobs. But what really impressed me today is this talk about processes, management strategies, etc., for really getting from A to B. I can only reiterate what I said this morning. It's not lack of ideas, it's not a lack of vision for where we want to go, but somehow we never seem to be able to get there. But I have high hopes that these KICs and the EIT also can get there, because you really have good management practices in place. So I can only congratulate you. I can only say I've been deeply impressed. I understand the EIT much better this evening. I understand the KICs much better. And I'm sure that many of you in the audience feel exactly the same.